Here I am piloting the new Hyundai Accent, and I'm going to tell you flat out that this makes so much sense driving a car like this. And I've thought about it a lot over my week with this vehicle. And you get out of cars recently like a McLaren, a Trackhawk, an LC500H, and you just lose sight of reality. And this is back to basics. It's a car that almost everybody can afford, at least in the US, either via a loan or a small down payment or cash. And there's something extremely freeing about that type of experience with a car. One, that there's not a lot of complication here. Two, that it is pretty much basic and does everything that you want it to do without being just too much. You're not going to worry about it. You're not going to think about where you're going to park it or if somebody's going to mess with it. And then you don't have to think about the depreciation. Every mile you're going to put on it isn't going to bankrupt you in 5 years. And I think that's one of the best parts about driving this car is you can log so many miles on it. You're not going to have a huge penalty in terms of fuel economy. I'm getting pretty much 40 miles per gallon regardless of how I drive it. And you know what? Everything just works. The steering feels okay. The brakes feel okay. The comfort's pretty good. And for the most part, it doesn't look horrible either. So when you roll this thing to a stop, I think the biggest problem with it is pretty much this. You want to get out in traffic, you put the hammer down, it sounds like 3 raccoons got in your trash can and had a fight. I mean, it just sounds horrendous. This is, classic, unfiltered 4-cylinder. It's so slow. It's such a putter that you feel horrible just pushing down the accelerator on this, because it's one of those few cars that gives you absolutely nothing for trying to go flat out. The only thing it hurts is your wallet in terms of fuel economy. So that's one of the things about this car that you have to just totally put out of your mind. If you can forgive the fact that this thing is painfully slow and it does everything else well, then this might be the car for you. Now let's talk about handling, or the way that the suspension setup is over broken pavement. And at a car in this price point with a torsion beam rear end, even though they've improved the dampers in the back and the angles at which it's at, this still has a very trampoline-like ride over bad pavement. It's under-dampened, which means it's going to ride softer over broken pavement. It's not overly firm, but it just doesn't have good body control. Now, when you get on medium pavement surfaces, stuff that's not really broken, you don't notice it as much unless you're sitting in the back seat. And I think that's where you're going to feel the most pain of riding on bad pavement, is the closer you get to that rear half of this car, the more springy it gets. And it's definitely a downer of this vehicle. But again, at this price point, you can't have everything. Pretty much over every other pavement surface, it's really good. It's really controlled. It's pretty soft. But this is not like an inspiring handling car either. I can't wait to get off this bad pavement here. I'm going to come to a stop, kind of show you the transmission performance. And now this has a 6-speed torque converted automatic. Takes about 3 weeks to get to 60. Does not have paddles, but it does have a manual mode in the column here. And if you pull a gear, there is no rev matching. There is no trickery. It's just a car that you leave in automatic and you try to get the best fuel efficiency possible. The truth is, this is a car you can drive every day. It's a car that you can drive every day and not feel bad about driving it. It gets great fuel efficiency. It's pretty simple overall, and you're not going to have to worry about a ton of shit breaking. You can work on it yourself. You can basically just enjoy piling the miles on this if you need a straight up commuter. and you don't have to look at yourself in the mirror at the end of a year and realize you lost $20,000 in value on it, like some of the more premium cars or mid-sized cars. It just has such a low buy-in that you don't have to deal with a lot of the crap of a more expensive car. And that's why I really enjoy seeing vehicles like this that, you know, brands like Hyundai and Kia have not given up on the small car. Dear Lord.
I came back for a real good one.
Yeah.
Some premium engineering.
I like the fact that you avoid real cars like the McLaren,
I was busy.
the LC500H, the Trackhawk, and you come for this.
Yes. I was busy for the McLaren. I was piloting the supercar in a monsoon.
Yeah, that's true, which we're going to talk about later. But right now, we are going to talk about the 5th generation Hyundai Accent. This bad boy has been around for a long time. And
What year was the first year?
I think like 94. No, it's got to be longer than 94. But it, you know, it was in other countries. I don't know that the first generation was in America. My history doesn't go back that far, but I can tell you what the 4th generation was called in Mexico.
Oh, yeah?
And you already know.
The Jimny?
The Dodge Attitude.
Oh.
The 4th gen Accent was a Dodge Attitude in Mexico.
Really?
Yeah. I wish we would have had that here. Dodge might have a killer compact car on its hands.
Well, that's the next thing. Screw the Demon. They need an attitude now.
Yeah, you're right. So what we're looking at is the absolute most basic transportation you could possibly own, other than the Kia Rio that I looked at. And this is very similar, but this is a true sedan form factor.
Saloon.
Yeah, saloon. So what's there to talk about? First is...
I don't know nothing about this
You
car.
don't really need to know everything you want to know. It's what you see is what you get. It's all stamped steel. There's no aluminum. It's struts and super easy to work on and service. I mean, you take a look at this.
Oh, can you change the heater core for me real quick?
Yeah, you can take the dashboard. I'll watch. Well, you know, like basic maintenance. You don't have to take covers off. I mean, this is like old school stuff here. From the previous generation, they used 13% more high-strength steel, which means the torsional rigidity is up by over 30%. So that not only is this a stiffer structure, it's quieter, it rides better, as what you would expect from a new generation subcompact. And
You'd at least hope.
you would hope, right? And now that the competition in small cars seems to be disappearing, this is a pretty compelling package for the price. You can get this car for about $14,500, the base, with a 6-speed manual.
That's crazy.
I know. It's cheap, and you get a lot for your money.
I'm surprised that the pull started at that price.
Yeah, true.
Jeez.
So in the back, Scott, this is what you would expect from a B-segment car, a torsion beam rear end. And there's a couple things to talk about with it. One, there is some attempts at trying to use paneling for aerodynamics. You pointed out one of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get why it's not on that side. It would melt, but it's just hard to believe that does anything.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because you think the air would blow back here and just get caught and have nowhere to go.
I'm sure there's an element of parachuting in there, but you know, clearly they're trying with the panels and the airflow here. So just because you're not spending a lot of money doesn't mean that they're totally cheaping out on it. Now everything else back here is as basic as you can possibly get, and basic in not a bad way. And
No, basic is good.
is good in a car like this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the more cars we get into, the more cars that we see, I wouldn't want to own half of them. Honestly, I just wouldn't.
That's what I keep saying. I cannot wait to see these cars when they're 10 years old, the current models.
Yeah.
Damn, touchscreen don't work.
Yeah, all the electronic parking brakes seizing up and all that crap.
You know, surprisingly, I mean, the parking brake's been out for a long time. Never have had to replace one of those calipers yet.
Really?
And I can't believe it.
Well, I guess we'll have
Well,
to...
maybe it's only one company building those and they all buy it from the same people
people.
and they've mastered it. I don't know. I'm sure they're getting replaced, but I've never done one yet.
Okay. Well, that's good. But you don't have to even worry about that because you have a manual handbrake with a cable here. So this is pretty
So
simple.
you can drift it and fold your tire in when you hit a curb?
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be doing some parking lot slides with this. So the other thing to note is undercoating isn't the greatest in some places, but
But the seams,
the body adhesives?
yeah, look at it. I mean, compared to the Infinity,
Yes.
it's like they had a blind guy doing it, like just spraying it on it, or using a mirror and with a can and a wand. I'm
yeah. And that's one thing you'll notice about the Hyundai products now is a lot of the attention to detail on the underbody, the adhesives, the glues, everything is put on. Obviously, this is robotically done. You know, everything is really neat and tidy. There's no spackling of crap. There's no missed areas. And, you know, hopefully the car stays quieter and rides better in the long term. Now, what you don't know is if this is going to turn into a straight up rust rocket after 10 years, because there is surface rust on the front and all the typical uncoated, you know, steel areas. So that's one thing I'd be curious to see after about 5 to 10 years of how bad this is going to look underneath.
Well, out of Hyundais and Kias, going back to a certain point, I mean, they've been holding up pretty well.
Okay.
I mean, yes, they had a recall. They want to coat the front subframe because they don't want to pay for it on certain years. But, I mean, back in 94, was it 94? What the hell was it? Not the Sonata. It was like an XG or...
Yeah,
whatever it
that
was.
was like the Infinity ripoff.
Yeah, whenever the first year, we had a customer with one with a broken frame.
Oh, okay.
Whatever, I mean, 90-something. Dude, they replaced it for free.
Damn. I don't think they'd be doing
Yeah,
that.
but
now,
I mean, those things are rotted out back then, but the newer ones,
yeah, not nearly as
from
bad.
the mid-2000s to now, I've never seen one.
Totally rotted. All right. Well, the only other thing to talk about is the suspension in the back, and I showed you the diagram, and I'm going to put this on the screen for you, is the damper angle has changed. And it has changed to improve overall ride quality and compression and rebound, which means that damper was on a much wider, you know, obviously a different angle, and this is a lot, well, it's more straight up and down. So the stroke, the ride quality in this is much better than the previous generation was. Final thoughts on the Hyundai Accent. Make no mistake, this is budget transportation, and you have to judge it in that manner. With this being almost fully loaded, it's right around 18.5 or 18.9. If you strip a lot of this away, like some of the safety stuff, the fluff on the interior, the proximity key where you just have to turn the key manually, you know, you can lose about $2,000 to $3,000 off the price. And I think that's where this is at its best. It doesn't look horrible. It looks mainstream. It's really well put together. It feels solid. It's not totally noisy until you start pushing down the accelerator. And I think for the most part, this does everything so well that this is a great mainstream car for somebody that does not want to waste a lot of money on new vehicles and doesn't want to deal with the nonsense of the used market. If you're not good at finding a used car, you don't know what to do, at least you buy this, you get a warranty, and you're never going to have to deal with it. And you don't have the depreciation. You know, the less you pay, the less you're going to lose in the long run. And that's a huge factor of this. Does it ride the best? No. Is it the quickest thing? It's not. You can't even say quick with this car. Does it handle well? No. But it's super efficient. It's really comfortable. There's plenty of room on the inside. There's a lot of storage space. The ergonomics are great. The infotainment works good. The sound system's good. And you get great fuel efficiency, if I hadn't said that already. So that's what you're going to look at with this. The last big thing about it is the running costs. You take a look at how you do the maintenance on it. You can get at everything on this car. You could literally do work yourself on here and not feel totally overwhelmed. Tire costs are pretty low. For the most part, everything is going to be as simple as you can possibly get with a modern car. And that's why I really like this thing. Honestly, you just get so tired of everything being so overly complicated, and this is more back to basics. Take care. I'll see you next time.
Simple, 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 simple. I mean, even taking this intake off wouldn't be that bad.
No, I mean, everything you can get to. I mean, you get to the backside. I mean, it's just, I mean, yeah, if you don't want to work on anything, of course, but if at least there's enough space in here to do shit.